would really appreciate it if I had the respect of that as well. What the task force doesn't realize is that every single meeting I've been personally attacked because I constantly remind everyone that we are meant to be objective members. I remember what I applied for. I read the ordinance, I read the scope of work, I'm well aware of what we're signing up for. I understand that certain people have certain political, and community
excuse me, enough. Because this is the thing. See, the rest of the task force don't know. At our last meeting, the meeting before, because I couldn't be there because a loved one was dying, you stepped down. You jumped off the Zoom call and you said this was not probably for you, because I was talking to you at the time, telling you that I disagree with your behavior along with the facilitation team, that you all were bypassing me. You were overstepping me. This agenda here, I didn't put it together. In the last, 24 hours, I was able to finally add something in there. That was it. But other than that, everything else on here, you all planned. I haven't planned anything, and I'm supposed to be the chair. But I know for a fact, you all have been having conversations outside of me. And all I've been asking is, excuse me, can y'all include me? What's going on? I don't know what's going on. But you, Mr. Cordova, seems to be the one that is running everything, that everything is going through you. And I'm trying to understand, because exactly like what Mr. Banner said, all of these things is what's happening in the Black community. That's what we all are looking at. We're looking at the things that have been happening with the Black community for years. I am 56 years old, and I have seen more damage to my community. I don't know what you're talking about, young man. I really don't. And this thing, anytime anyone addresses you, you go into this thing that someone is talking to you in reference to you as a person. I'm talking about your behaviors, and I'm talking about how you actually have the gumption to take and demean others, put others down, and then tell others, these is grown people. These are grown folks. We are being adults, and we're trying to talk with you, but you come out at all of us. Ever since this has been going on, the person's voice that I have been hearing is yours. And I don't understand at this point in time how the facilitation team has continued to do this when there is 18 people on here. And that is all that I have ever said. I wanted everything to go through the 18. That is all I've ever said.
Jewel and Ishmael, I would like to, can you pause here? Joe, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was just going to say, clearly we have, we have to address this point here among the leadership team that we have established. We have tried to establish some roles and get some clarity around that. I think there's a little more trust building that we still need to do here with this group. In the interest of trying to use on LaJewel's last point about the fact that there are 18 folks here on this committee, we have this leadership group identified to try to help us move things forward in the interest of trying to respect their time as well, and in the interest of trying to keep this body moving forward on its progress. I'm not trying to discount anything that anybody has said by proposing that we allow folks to continue to comment on these topics, while still acknowledging Marcus's point about the word omission here, right? And that's going to get back in there. And whether that was done, however that happened, we can certainly acknowledge that. But I think it's more productive to use at this moment the time of this group to do the work that we have before us. Unfortunately, people have these feelings, and we need to still address that. But that's what I'd like to propose.
I'm in agreement totally with that. Okay. But we definitely have to stop allowing Ishmael to come at people. People have a right to take and propose or speak what they have to my understanding, they're supposed to speak openly. That's what Larry suggested.
Yes.
And when they're doing that, you have this young man coming back and attacking people. That's not good. That's not good. So that's all I'm asking, is that he step back. He
Okay,
may
and
not
I,
like it,
So-
but step back.
no, and I
Okay.
agree, and I think this is a good point. It's a good time to just remind everyone of the guidelines, the discussion guidelines that were up on the screen before. Please, we need to be speaking with everyone with respect. And I will reiterate that you would raise your hand if you would like to speak. Do not just jump in to respond to anyone. So there is quite a few people's hands raised, and I apologize if I am not tracking this correctly by who raised their hand first. But I'm just going to go down the list of what I see here. So I'm going to start with Kevin. You have your hand raised. Please go and provide your comments.
Thank you. I was actually going to, I had three parts. I'm going to try to make this fast. The first part was actually going to ask the process of which, how people collaborated and worked on this. So it seems like we have a kind of an answer. Thank you, LaJewel, for expressing those feelings and transparency with us. I feel that if the chair and the vice chair cannot work together, then there needs to be some sort of discussion revolving the leadership team and creating a good environment for people to work together. So that was first point, get that out of the way. Second point, I wanted to know from the leadership committee, which now whoever created this document, if they had read what was in the box that was given to us. The task force had dropped in the resources a file that stated police disciplinary behaviors. I guess for the leadership team, were any of these ideas ran and checked to make sure that police disciplinary actions or whatever we're looking into does not coincide with at the state level, so that we're not wasting our time here?
I didn't receive anything, Kevin, in regards to that. So no, I haven't received or seen anything. So.
Okay. Ismail, did you check within the resource box? Again, this says Uniform Peace Officers Disciplinary Act at the state level. Were any of the ideas checked with that in accordance to that act to make sure that we're not wasting our time here and double downing on something that we might lose at the state level?
Kevin, no, I did not check that document. I went solely on our ordinance and our scope of work to recommend my subcommittee ideas.
Okay, thank you for being transparent. And then the third thing was I just wanted to propose something on the committee as a commission. So I wanted to honor point 6 and 7 for the scope of work at the city ordinance given to us. And this scope of work speaks about, let me try to get it open. It speaks about, okay, point 6, review police data to determine and so far as possible if disparities exist in interactions with discernible subsets of the community. And then point 7, assess the adequacy of the current staffing status and equipment requirements and making recommendations based upon best practices and peer city models. So therefore, combining point 6 and 7, I want to, if it is okay, and I've discussed this with some task force members already, if we could establish a committee that has the responsibility of accounting the monies going to the police department and making sure to see if there's a way that we could reallocate resources within the department and start looking at it that way. I have a lot of the data already this summer collected that talks about police hours, community hours, and programs, and the data and the results of the police department within 2020 and 2021, and it's organized. So if the leadership team and the committee and the task force permits, I would like to establish a subcommittee that relates to points 6 and 7 of the task force scope of work.
Thank you, Kevin, and we made note of that and adding it to the list. Aubrey and then Joshua.
Yeah, I have two questions. One, and I did just look at the box, and forgive me if I'm not understanding how it works, but I'm curious if there was any kind of a resource that was put out for task force members who are not on the leadership team to be able to provide input offline, and not necessarily because I don't want things to be transparent, more in the respects of time constraints. Is there an opportunity for task force members to provide feedback or suggestions when we're making decisions on things like subcommittees, whether that's like a doodle poll or adding things, just to make sure everybody's input is honored? Is that something that is there a tool I'm missing where that was given as an opportunity?
No, but I mean, we did send around that mural board to ask if you had any additional suggestions. You can add them there as a sticky note, so that's still open. And we can resend that link if you would like. And then we can also, what we're planning on doing is capturing everyone's thoughts and feedback and providing a consolidated list. And that way we can send around to everyone after this meeting.
Great, thank you. I would appreciate that. It sounds like some of what is going on here is that perhaps there isn't and there's a lot going on here, but perhaps one small piece of it is that there's not a great way that everyone knows about, which you just explained a way where we can provide feedback like that. And so we're just wondering if that might be a way for people to do that. And then the second question I had for leadership team is, did you consider any, in your conversations, did you talk at all about mental health or about social services and how they relate to the police force, and how the police force is trained in some of those areas to even refer out where it's appropriate? I think we're in the middle of a mental health crisis in our nation and our world right now. So I'm curious to hear a little bit about that, if that was something that was talked, if not, suggest that it is something we consider as a committee.
I think it's definitely something, Aubrey, that can be added. That I know of, it has not been discussed. As I stated before, I'm kind of getting it just like you all are getting it, even though I'm the chair. And that's kind of my issue of what I'm having, because I definitely was under kept suggesting that you all would have input on this. And that was, my thing, that I be able to contact you all, or you all be able to email me, or contact me in some sort of way, so that we could get these things, ideas put on here. And again, I just, got the list with all your names and your emails. So unfortunately, no, at least I haven't. I don't know if someone else has, but I did not. So sorry. But I will be in contact with you going further to make sure that, I get your information, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's great. I was just curious if it was a point of conversation and
yes,
wanted to be represented in here. So
yeah, and I'm in agreement with you. That's something too, I definitely think that should be on here. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all I had to share.
Thank you. I just wanted to announce that this is being live on YouTube. Just apologies for some of the technical difficulties in the beginning, but just want everyone to be aware of that. And again, this is really the start of the conversation, and we really hope that we are capturing everyone's thoughts, but we will provide multiple avenues for everyone to provide feedback after this meeting. So just going down, Tish, and then Joshua, and then Marcus.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I see these topics as being categories. And if you have a particular passion within a category, that should be the subcommittee that you pursue, and you bring that voice forward. I personally agree with Aubrey. I happen to be very interested in the topic of mental health. Mental health could certainly pop up under training. I believe the Elgin Police Department trains all of their officers in crisis intervention training. It could also come under Kevin's proposed subcommittee of allocation of funds. Do you allocate funds to the police as first responder in the social services arena or not. So it could come up there. It could come up in a variety of different places. Whatever your passion is, whatever your direction is, your voice could be heard in any of these subcommittees, I believe. I don't want to waste any more time itemizing under these proposed topics, and they are proposed. I also want to just throw this out there. I would recommend, can we just fast track the Citizens Review Board, the Civilian Review Board, because clearly there is a lot of interest, there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of work that's already been done. Let everyone who is interested in that topic run with it. And then the other topics can be just be parsed out amongst the rest of us. And by the way, I have to commend Marcus for speaking with candor, brute honesty, pain, and frustration. But on the other hand, I do agree that we need to be respectful and we need to be civil. However, I'm also going to say that sometimes we can waste a lot of time by thanking everybody for being honest and saying things like, I hear you, and then our true feelings erupt. Why don't we just have conversation, let everyone speak, however raw, however formal, however pained, however blasé, whatever you want to say. The respect comes in simply listening. This is not an opportunity to prove that you're some sort of super listener and you're thanking everybody for, being so honest. Just let people speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Joshua and then Marcus.
Just looking down the list and hearing, my feeling would be to put the forced engagement and those things under the racial profiling and disparities rather than under training. I think the question under training is about use of force, and hearing Marcus and the clarity, the difference between entrapment and that forced engagement. It really is a question about policing in the Black community. And so I would rather see that up there instead of putting that with training. However, I do want to see mental health broken out into two different categories. One is, three, right? Kind of like Aubrey said about both training and financial allocations. How do you engage persons with mental health? I was looking through the response to resistance for 2020, and about a little over a third of the engagements on resistance were categorized as emotionally distressed. That's a big piece of engagement in terms of policing. Higher than drug use, not quite as high as alcohol, but I think that's important to pay attention to. But I also want us to ask the recruitment question and retention and mental health of the police officers. If you look through some of the recent reporting, we talk about a suicide intervention, domestic violence, and then you ask them to go police a crime scene, especially 2 murders in the last few months. Police officers engage a lot, and I don't want an officer on the beat who is emotionally distressed themselves and loses their cool in the middle of their job because of the emotional capacity of their job. So I think that's one place where we can tag mental health in a variety of ways. I'm concerned about the accountability piece and the racial disparities one, because I think those overlap so much. And so I'm trying to figure out how to parse those out, or if those are important to split in the different timeframes, even though they both have a lot of energy, because I think they will overlap pretty significantly. Thanks.
Sarah, can I just jump in on that one? Joshua, thanks for pointing that out. I think one of the things we'll be doing is paying attention to that overlap and helping to pay attention to it, pointing it out.
Thank you. Marcus and then Councilmember Powell.
I just want to say that whatever we're doing here, can we please not go into it with what we can and can't do, right? There's laws, there's all kinds of ordinances and ceilings that are put in order to prevent us from getting where we need to be. So the things that I personally talk about, I know they're not an easy thing. I know it's a fight, but we have to go at it and find what is needed, not what they're gonna allow us to do. And just because something is written into law, it can be unwritten. And if you don't believe me, look at what they did to the 1965 Voters' Rights Act. Look what they're doing to the women's reproduction laws, right? So just because something is there doesn't mean we can't do it. We just have to be willing to fight the fight all the way to the Supreme Court if necessary. That's my dedication to this. And if you know people are looking for some easy win, and that's what my problem is we don't need an easy win. We need what is needed in order to actually make change and to create a balance of power and accountability. That's what we should get out of this. Anything less than that, there's no change.
Thank you, Marcus. Councilmember Powell.
Good evening. I just wanted to ask the facilitation team to address the items that are in box and how they got in box in the resource folder, because just looking at what's there, it appears that some of that is in response to questions or concerns that were brought up from some of our previous meetings. I see a copy of the current collective bargaining agreement. I also see a copy of the police officers' Bill of Rights. So those are just resources that address some of the questions I believe that came up, but I think it would be helpful that as these things are being placed in box, if some of these are being placed in box in response to questions that have come up at the meetings, then there should be something that goes out to the group to say, hey, there was a question that came up regarding this, or this request for information was made. It is now in box and this is what it is, or this is what it looks like. I think that would help rather than just throwing things in there and then people going to the folder and not understanding what's there or why or how it got there, if that makes sense. But if someone could kind of just go through the stuff that's there now, I think I addressed a couple of them. I wasn't going to address all of them.
So, Councilman Powell, I'm not in a position at this moment to pull it up, but I don't know, somebody on our team is pulling it up. I just want to address the suggestion about sending out a note to the task force when something goes in there. We'll do that in the future. We might even try to have a way to send it out in a digest form if we're putting things in multiple items in, so that we're not bombarding people with emails. But yes, no, I agree with your point about if something is in there in response to a task force member's question or request for it, we'll let people know once it's in there.
Thank you. I think that would be helpful. And just to address some of the other things I don't look at this as a farce or a dog and pony show. I'm sure I know I have other things I could be doing, and I'm sure everyone on this task force has other things that they could be doing. The goal of this task force, obviously we had to have some type of structure in order to form the task force, and that is where the ordinance came in. But we kept it pretty open so that this task force could still address a lot of the concerns and hopefully all of the concerns that you all have. I haven't heard anything that's been said here today that can't or shouldn't be addressed. The profiling issue is a real issue. The forced engagements are a real issue. That is something that could easily fall under the subcommittee for profiling. Those are real issues. There's data probably that shows that that's a real issue that needs to be addressed. It's nothing that needs to even be argued about. But the whole, I think what really needs to happen at these meetings is before we end these meetings, we need to make sure that there's some type of consensus from everyone on how to move forward. I even heard some suggestions on using Doodle or some other type of mechanism for folks to communicate ideas in between meetings. I think that's important because I think a lot of the work that is going to have to be done is going to have to be done in between the meetings. We're only meeting every other week for 2 hours at a time. So I don't want to take up a lot of time, but those were just my quick feedback and just wanting to make sure that as we, put things in that Dropbox, that A, people know that they're there, and B, that there's some explanation on what it is and if it's addressing something that people have asked for.
Agreed, Councilmember Powell. I just want to add something really quick before Sarah continues the facilitation. In the box folder, there is a way for us to also add notes, and we can do that so that we can identify like what those resources are and why they are where they are as well. So we can do that. We can work on that this week.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to note that it is 8:04 and we do have another agenda item, but just noting that there are
7:04, Sarah.
oh, thank you. Sorry, I am in Eastern time. So we do have people whose hands are raised. Do everyone feel comfortable that we continue this conversation until and then take a break before we move on to the next topic? I see. Okay, I do not see any objections. So I do see Aubrey, you have your hand raised. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I have already spoken. And so if there's someone that has not spoken that has their hand raised, I'd love for them to have a chance to speak. So is there someone in line behind me that has not spoken yet? Can we give them a chance?
I do not see anyone else other hand raised, but I do want to pause and allow anyone else to raise their hand who hasn't spoken yet.
Great.
I do not see anyone's hand is being raised. So Aubrey, go ahead and with your comment.
Okay, my comment is a question for Marcus. You mentioned in your last comment, you made a statement about not being held back by things that, and forgive me if I'm not using the exact phraseology that you use, but by what we can't do. I think I know what you're getting at there, but for my own clarity's sake, I'm interested to hear if there's something specific that you mean by that, really just for me to be able to hear and learn.
Okay, so generally when you're dealing with tough situations, whether it's gun reform or whatever, when you first start talking about things, they always start telling you about all of these laws and these policies that were put in place to protect law enforcement from being held accountable, or put in place to protect gun manufacturers from being held accountable, right? Just because these things have been written into law already does not mean that they cannot be rewritten and taken out. And that's why I used the 1965 Voting Act rights, because as you can see, they turned around and gutted that and ripped it apart and started creating all these voter suppression laws. The same thing they're doing with women's reproduction rights. They're gutting everything that's already been put in place. But see, they have people who have the courage to fight, even if they got to go all the way to the Supreme Court. That's what I'm saying. If my dedication is to fight for this until I die, right? And I'm willing to fight as long and as hard and wherever it takes me, it takes me. That's my level of commitment. And when I start seeing certain things, when we start talking about, well, let's look and see what they want us to do, as opposed to what we need to do, then that raises red flags with me. Or if we have to look and see what laws they have in place where we don't even talk about that because there's already a law there that prevents us from dealing with that. You know, if anything, we should be looking at the law so we know how to go about having those laws overturned and ripped apart and moved out of the way so that we can get to what we need. I hope that helps you out a little bit more.
Yeah, that does provide some clarity. Thank you. I appreciate you speaking to that. And then the second thing I just wanted to say is that I just want to be cautious as we continue as a group that there's a lot of different perspectives here. I know that I probably disagree with lots of things that a lot of people believe. And I know that there's things that people disagree with me on. And I want to be just cautious that we are not, that we're honoring where every person is at in their own journey and in their own life and what they have to bring because of their own perspective, even when it comes to things like age and things like gender and all the other spectrums of differences that are represented on this committee. And so, yeah, just want to remind everyone of that. And I've heard it a little bit today and feel like I wanted to speak up and say something about that. So.
Thank you. Denise, you have your hand up.
Yep, I have two things. First, Pastor Blaylark is not able to get into the meeting. So if somebody could please help him, that would be great.
Thank you. Someone will reach out to him and help him get in.
Okay, that's the first thing. And the second thing, in a lot of my conversations with folks, and this kind of goes to the point of getting to the root of things. We have surface conversations often about horrible things that have been done, horrible things that have been done to members of our community, horrible things that have been done to members of our community by law enforcement. And in the hearing, as I'm hearing about these things, and I'm talking not just now, I'm talking about for the last 10 or 15 years, it is almost like we need a subcommittee for this work around the concept of an atonement. Many of the officers who have committed those past really bad acts are no longer part of the police department. However, what they've done lingers. And I hear about certain officers from several generations of members of our community about the same officer. And so something that keeps like welling up in me is that maybe we need a subcommittee on atonement. Looking at, and I don't even know if that's the right word, but it's more about some very clear and acknowledgement that these things did happen and they were wrong. And how can we move forward when the sins of the past have not been addressed? And so I just want to kind of put those words out into the universe. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. We have captured everyone's suggestions. It doesn't sound like anyone would like to remove any that were proposed, but we did have some additional additions and some additional subcommittees, as you will, subtasks that we should be also focusing on. With that, I do want to take a break. It is 7:11, so if everyone can come back by 7:20, and we can move on to the next item of the agenda.
Sarah, if you're on, Walter needs to be let in.
Thank you.
Okay, I thought he was on.
No, he's not on because he's on the phone. Yeah, he just got off the phone with me.
Okay, well, okay, we will.
Okay.
We will.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Hey everyone, we'll get started in 2 minutes. So please slowly make your way back.
All right, Sarah, I think we'll get started again. I know that it looks like Pastor Blaylock is still having difficulty connecting with audio. Hopefully, he can get that connection up and running soon. Maybe he can at least hear us, but I can see that he's still working on that. So we'll get started with this next item on our agenda, which is an overview from Chief Lally and the Elgin PD of the K-9 program, including data, and then followed by a discussion. And I think when we, the last meeting we had a discussion about under accountability related to the Civilian Review Board. And I think at the time, this was another topic that we were thinking maybe was under that category. But as these subcommittees get decided on, it could be that this presentation fits somewhere else with those topics. But we're going to definitely learn about that program now and put it to use wherever it falls in our subcommittee discussions. So Chief Lally, I'm going to turn it over to City Hall. I think you might be there.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Okay. I'm going to turn it over to you.
So it looks like Kevin has his hand up, so I don't want to start if there's a question or.
Hi, Chief Lally. Thank you for the courtesy.
Sure.
I just wanted to bring up the concerns of this being on task force time. I remember this decision was made during a time where the task force hasn't really voted on anything. It was more or less hearing Marcus's concerns. And of course, I believe those concerns need to be addressed as well. However, I sort of feel like it's inappropriate that, there's other times where I believe that the city could use, other than task force times, to present such trainings, ideas, or etc. But that's just how I feel. But thank you. I don't want to stall too much.
Yeah, and just, if whatever the task force decides, if I was asked to give this information in presentation, if the task force chooses to want to, have this information disseminated to them in a different way, let me know. Obviously, it's your time. So whatever you guys want me to do, I'm your resource, and I'm fine with whatever it is that you choose. And there's a few hands. So Joe, I'll let you take the hands and I'll just be on pause.
Okay, Denise, my apologies, Denise. I missed your hand earlier. You had a question up front, or was that an old hand?
Well, I'm not going to say it's an old hand, but that is.
I didn't read it that way. I'm sorry. The hand from before. My apologies. Okay, and then Marcus.
Yeah, I'm with Kevin on that. I didn't ask for a presentation about the K-9 unit, and I don't think that PD presentations should be on our task force meetings. That they have other platforms where they can show how great the policy is, and the work that they're doing is great. So unless it's the specific stuff that was asked for, then I don't think it should be presented here. And no disrespect to Chief. I'd love to hear her talk.
Chair Krigler, I'd like to discuss this with you. I think we, as you were starting to step into your role, this was an item on the agenda already. So I just wanted to ask you to weigh in on what we've heard related to using task force time.
Okay, well, at this point, I see that there are 2 objections to this at this point. So I would say to put it to the task force as of right now, and let them take a vote on it. That's what I would say to do. With respect to Chief Lally as well, definitely we appreciate you, coming out and doing this for us. But at this time, I think that we're really wanting to get started on things, with the task force. So from what I'm seeing here, and I guess it would be a matter of hands of who, is wanting this as of right now and who is not. So I would say anyone right now that would want to have this presentation, could you please put your hands up? Okay. Okay, we have 1 hand here. So I think overwhelming at this time, we're declining the offer at this time. Chief, thank you.
Yeah, so if the task force facilitators would like to advise me how, I think it's valuable information that the task force can use, information that I think will guide some of your conversations. So however you would like that information disseminated, obviously, allowing me the ability to give the context around things, be able to answer questions, but however you guys choose to, for me to deliver that to you, just let me know, and I'm more than happy to assist.
Thank you again, Chief Lally.
Yeah, Chair Krigler, I'd like to suggest that actually we sort of keep this presentation, Chief Lally, if you don't mind, in back pocket or around in case it comes up within a subcommittee as something that they want to better understand or ask you questions about. In the meantime, in the off time in between our meetings here, one of the things we can do, Chair Krigler and the leadership committee, if you agree, is just try to maybe gather what can be shared that's in written format, since at this point, that's what we have. sharing with the committee, and making that available to people as well. And I see hands, Joshua.
Joe, one other thing too is,
Oh.
I know that you were going to reach out to, I believe, Marcus to get me some specific information. And so then if there are specific questions, then I want to be able to give that information. So, but it's, again, it's not proper for me to contact the task force members individually, which is why I have to go through the task force. So when I get that information, I'm more than happy to respond, give information. But I just want to stress that, it's to give you guys what you need to be informed to make some decisions. I heard a couple conversations about mental health. There's actually there's something in the Safety Act that addresses officers' mental health and mandatory check-in. So there's a lot of stuff that you guys are talking about that I can give you some really good information. I'm more than happy to provide it, however, and that's all I'll say. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And Marcus, I think you might be sending her that information soon. Joshua.
Hey, Chief, I just have one question about that. When I went through the transparency site, I didn't see any data related to canine deployment and stuff like that. Did I miss it, or is it not reported there?
No, so the transparency site has the last 2 years of use of force data. The rest are contained in the annual reports, one of which I think you referenced. We just built that transparency site and we included the last 2 years of data. The rest are in annual reports. You have to look for it. So that would be, again, something that I would provide some information on where to locate this, where you can do your own research. So that was another thing that I was going to try to guide you through. So if that's where I have to, do some type of, send you guys a document or send the task force, look here, look here, look here to help guide, I'm more than happy to do that.
Right. So does it fall underneath the use of force? Okay.
Yeah. So depending on the situations, we call it's response to resistance. There's use of force and show of force. And a vast majority are show of forces. And so you just have to dig through the data. So like I said, that was going to be a tutorial on how to do that. I can provide that later.
Aubrey?
Yeah, I was just going to say what you said, Joe, that I would really love to see that data. I don't think that it's necessary to take up task force time for it, but I'm curious if maybe a good approach would be to load that data. And Chief Lally, I respect what you are saying about being able to add context. And so I wonder if maybe in our next task force meeting, we provide some time to be able to provide the data and then ask questions about it to save some time.
Thank you, Aubrey. Tish.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say to Chief Lally, thank you very much for all of the time and effort that you took to prepare for your presentation tonight. Maybe what we need to do is, this was a response to, I believe, one task force member's request for information. If it's one or two task force members, maybe the information can just be written and deposited in the box. Maybe we need to discuss in what format we want the information presented. And if an overwhelming majority say this would be a great presentation. So what I would like to see, and let's not waste anybody's time if it's just an email or if it's a presentation. Chief Lally mentioned a tutorial in what information is out there on the transparency site and how one would go about doing one's own research. If a good number of us would like that, I'm going to propose that we ask the chief to present what kind of information is out there to the average citizen who wants to research police matters. What does the transparency website look like? What kind of information can you get if you walked into the police station? What's FOIable? What's in the archives? What's in the annual report? What can we actually get our hands on? There could be some screen sharing. I think we just need the information basics 101. When the request came up for canine statistics, I think most of us just thought, oh, well, it probably has some bearing on future decisions or planning. And I think we were still new at this and didn't know what we could question or elaborate upon. It's all important information. I'm a librarian. All information is important. It's just how it's packaged, what format, how much time we want to devote to task force meetings on something, or again, what could be dropped in the box. But if it's dropped in the box, if it's not right before us, we have the responsibility. We are tasked with looking at that information. And again, being notified that something is in the box relating to somebody's question. You know, we owe it to the person who requested the information to look at that information, take notes, mull it over, discuss it later, question some things, whatever. I feel really bad that we asked for Chief Lally to do this presentation and then we decided we didn't need it. I think we still need the information. Maybe we erred in what kind of a format we wanted it in. But again, if you all agree, I would like to see something, a presentation on what kinds of information are out there and what does the average civilian have access to? What kinds of requests can we make for whatever kinds of information, et cetera, et cetera. Can I ask for a quick vote or ask someone to ask for a quick vote?
I think that would be something we could put to the leadership team, or technically.
Madam Chairwoman?
Hey, Tish. Well, first thing I do want to address, I don't think in the information that was being asked, they weren't asking for a presentation. They were asking for the information, to be supplied, what they were asking for. So the presentation was nowhere in there. And I know we didn't have a vote in regards to the presentation. So again, I thank her for coming out, but I know that's not what they were requesting. So she did state that she would be willing, to take and submit that information to the facilitators so they can put that in the Dropbox for us. And then we would have access to, any information that she would put in there, and I do think it would be wise for us to go through that information and read it for ourselves, but just at this point in time, from what I got, all of the members were stating they didn't want the presentation at this time. Okay, that's what I got. So in reference to, I don't think it necessarily has to be a vote because she stated that she would put it in. And again, like I said, it's going to go through the facilitators. So any information, that's not in there, I'm sure we can go back to you, Chief Lally, and ask you for any information that may be missing, that we may want more information on. So.
But Joel, I was just asking if it would be a good idea to have a presentation by the chief on what kinds of information is available.
Well, I think after she's submitted the information and we all have gotten a chance to kind of go through and look, then I think we would be, and it would better serve her as well, not to have her just come out and just talk. We would have definite things that we would be wanting her to talk about. And that would be something that you all can submit to us so we can submit to her so she can have that information to come back at a later date.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Tish. Marcus?
Yeah, so this is again, like you see the misinformation. So Tish thinks that I asked for statistics on the K9 unit when that's not what I asked for. The work that's been being done in the community has been brought to my attention that citizens feel that the law enforcement misuses the K9 unit to create false hits of some sort of drug or something so that they can tear their car apart. And they have done it on multiple occasions where there's been these hits and then they find no drugs. So what I requested was that we be able to view the video from some specific incidents and see whether what the citizens are saying are true or false. And I've also spoken with one of the citizens, and if we're going to bring that information and have the chief give a narrative, that we also allow that citizen to come and give his narrative and his version of what took place in that video. And he definitely said he was willing to do that. I also asked that we be able to see the footage of video where the dog was actually sicked on someone and allowed to bite a human being. And in 2021, I don't think anybody should be bitten by a dog in any capacity. But that's what I asked for specifically, not a presentation.
We got it, Marcus. Thank you. I think also Chief Lally requested further information about the specifics of those incidents to pull the video. And so, hopefully you can get that to us. We can facilitate it to her as part of a task force information request.
And Joe, real quick too.
Mhm.
So what's important too is that understanding why a dog is used, or understanding how a dog is trained, or understanding, how that to me is also part of the context, because, and that's, I was prepared to deliver this in a obviously in a verbal fashion. So now I'm going to have to find a way to deliver it to you guys where you'll still get the context, because it's important that, what you see our policies, that you see how the dogs are trained, you see what the use is, you see what the case law is. So that's also the other stuff that I have to provide to you guys too. And I'm more than happy to see the video and talk to the gentleman and work through it. Absolutely no issues whatsoever with that. But it's also important that you guys get that background information, and that is something that I want to make sure that is said.
Gotcha. Thanks. Chair Krigler, I know we have a couple more questions on this. But after we have these questions, I think it would be a good time to pose to the task force, either if you have an idea or if somebody has a suggestion on how to use our remaining time, since we're not having the presentation. But I'll take these questions here and then suggest that we do that. Pastor Blanchard. Walter?
I'm trying to get on. Look like my computer is somehow, you guys are hacked into my computer. I'm going to have to call the FCC and see what's going on with this facilitation team tapping into my. Actually, the chair answered she answered, and so did Marcus. So I'm out.
Okay. Next is Shimon.
Good evening. This is me, my personal opinion. I feel we'd be better served at looking at policies, like the presentation that the chief had prepared, rather than going back and trying cases that have already been tried. I think the way to get to change is to look at what's in place now and see if it makes sense. To see if demographics aren't being served, if demographics aren't being represented properly, or if because we're talking about holding people accountable. But if we don't look at how they're trained, if we don't look at the policies, what are we holding them accountable to? There's nothing. And I mean, we all have feelings. We all have emotion, how we view stuff. I mean, that's why we're here. Everybody's here to do what's best for Elgin, and that's why we're here. So it's obviously there's an issue. Obviously, there's problems. But I just think going back and trying cases that are old or in the past doesn't serve us as a task force that are supposed to be looking at policies, that are looking at things in place to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Shimon, for that comment. Marcus, is that a new hand or was that from before?
Yeah, it's a new hand.
Okay, go ahead.
So the problem is not with what's on black and white, what's in paper. The problem is what's being done in the streets that doesn't come to the light. Right? That's what the problem is, what you don't see. Again, our police department, like I say, 99% of the time they're doing excellent work. Then there's that 1% that gets pushed under the rug and everybody ignores and they whitewash it. And that's not going to be in policy. That's not going to be in a presentation. It's going to be in the streets with the people who have been victimized. Those voices are the ones that you never hear. Because what happens is 9 times out of 10, they turn around and they put so many bogus charges on somebody, make their head spin where they have to go into self-preservation and focus on trying to beat these charges in order to move on with their life, that they don't get the opportunity to come forward and say something. And then if they do, they turn around and say, well, he's a criminal. He's been charged with this, that, and another, and he resisted, and he did this, and he did that. And in our society accepts that answer and disregards that a dog bit somebody. It bit somebody. You said, get him. That's a problem for me. As a black man in 2021, that the police are still sicking dogs on us? You think that's okay? Come on, man.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think that, you know, I was in a conference all day, a reentry program for they don't call themselves ex-offender, but they call themselves citizens returning to society. And some of the stories that some of these inmates or ex-inmates or citizens return to society, I'm with Marcus. You know, the policies is really for those people of non-color. But the policies for us are a little different. It has never been fair, never been just. And even the state's attorney said today that, you know, she acknowledged that this criminal system is flawed in the sense when it comes to brown and black people. So, and I know a lot of our people who's on this task force are not going to understand that. And so, you know, you all can look at the policies. Most of us know the policy. One of the things I will agree with Shimon with, that many times we do need to know the policies so we can be able to correct them and also know how we're being treated in an equitable way. But I do go with Marcus that sometimes it's not going to get reported because, you know, and thank God for the chief. She's going to make sure that, and she should make sure her department look fine, but she's not out there in the streets. There's, you know, you got that bunch out there who do a lot of terrible things, specifically to brown and black people. And I'm sorry to say that. That's what we have.
Thank you, Walter. Shimon, I see you leaning forward. Were you going to comment again?
Well, I don't want to get in the back and forth.
Okay, got it.
But go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think it's clear that, you know, we agreed that we didn't need to hear the chief's presentation. But I think what this discussion does tell us is that this is an issue that needs to be somewhere in the discussion of this task force. And so, you know, whether it's, you know, identified in a subcommittee or something that is addressed in the whole, in the group of a whole, committee of a whole, or something like that, there needs to be a place where this gets discussed. Policies related to it get reviewed as well, but also the human element, the human aspect of it can come out in that discussion as well. So I think, and I feel like with the broad range of subcommittee topics, there should be no problem for identifying a home within the topics that we have proposed for that issue. And I think we can do that. So Chair Krigler, I want to just turn over to you for a moment and just say, you know, given that at this point where we're at, did you want to use the remaining time in a particular way? Or anyone else on on the committee want to suggest something, but Chair Kriegler, I wanted to start that conversation with you.
Yes, I do think at this point in time, I think we're needing to, I think we're really needing to talk a little bit more because it seems like a lot of people really have some thoughts and some ideas in regards to why they really got on here, you know. I'm not really sure because, you know, with my own thought and my own opinion here, I thought that this particular venue was going to be a matter of addressing the citizens' concerns. And you know, like we said, the persons that are being affected in major ways are the African American and Hispanic, you know, communities. Though I'm willing to step out and say a large amount have been African American, and I know that persons have stated that, you know, we can't look in the past. Well, I can tell you that the Black population here has been decreased because of a lot of the actions that were going on for years with the Elgin Police Department. So, I mean, we can't just kind of sit and act like this stuff has never happened, you know, and the majority of Black males that do live here in Elgin, they've been affected, you know, they really have, or they know family members that have. So I know this may be uncomfortable to some and new to some. And then some may just want to like kind of get over it and we go past it. But to my understanding, that's not what we're here for. We are here to address something. It is a serious matter. So, you know, we really have to take it to task. And so, you know, I've everything that everyone has suggested, I think we've got some good things here to go forward on. One of the things that I think that we can really start to look at here are looking at these subcommittees and trying to start to narrow them down. What I would probably say is to ask persons on an individual level of what are they looking for? Maybe, you know, two things of what is it that they're looking to do in regards to serving on a subcommittee. Then that gives us a little bit more, you know, ground to go on to know exactly where, you know, what subcommittees are going to be important going forward for those first three. I think that's what we kind of need to do, to have people take and make those choices right now of at least two things that are really major important to you that you would like to try to bring some sort of you know, some sort of answers to or research to. And then that kind of gets us flowing, you know, that's my thought. So anyone can chime in on their thoughts right now of what they're thinking.
That's what I was going to ask you next. Did you want to throw that out there for people to comment on or reflect on?
Yes, yes, I do.
Okay. Oh, who's Walter? Were you first?
Yes. I want to say I totally agree with the chair. Can you hear me? I look like I'm trying to come live and can't, and look like you know, I don't know what's going on with it's not my computer, it's something going on with whoever's the technology of what's going on. That's okay. I would say this, that one of the things that we try to do in these subcommittees is try to get into the meat of what is going on. And I totally agree with Jewel. When you look at it, statistically speaking, disproportionately, African Americans are being jailed, specifically African American males, you know, even got some females in there, at a disproportionately, not only in Elgin, but in this county. When you look at the numbers, when you look at Elgin, maybe have 6-7% African Americans, but the jail population is much greater. And for some of the same things that, like I said, non-white does. And they're being prosecuted, not knowing the law themselves, and not knowing what's going on. I said, yeah, maybe we do need to understand policies so we can get that out to the people. And so the people can understand some of the policies. And also they need to understand when they are being arrested, some of their rights. So it's a lot of things that we need to do, but I think we need to go on and deal with some of these subcommittees. And I hope I didn't get a chance to hear the subcommittees because I've been trying to get on ever since something to 6, just got on. So I really want to abstain a lot of things I'm saying. However, I think that a lot of people on the task force, really don't understand the magnitude. I do like, believe his name is Brockwit, Joshua is, I think that was, that's his name. Let me look at it. I really appreciate him because, he said as a non-African American, that he really want to understand the plight and the problem. Because I don't think a lot of these people do understand the plight and the problem. Yeah, Joshua. I thank you, Joshua, for that. I remember he made that comment. I don't think people do understand, the problem. Hold on, let me talk. You guys made me wait, so let me talk. 60 something, I'm 60 something years old in this city, and I have got stopped just by driving being black, right in my neighborhood, and that shouldn't be. And the guy said that I didn't stop behind the line of the stop sign. Only 2 years ago. Respected minister, doctor's degree in divinity, outstanding citizen, and I get, I'm getting stopped. This stuff pisses me off. So it needs to stop. And like I said, you got some people, those police officers are just been rogue police officers when it comes to somebody black and male. And this stuff needs to stop. I'm really up to here with it. And maybe just listening at some of the things I heard today, with the reentry program, maybe that's when I'm fired up, and maybe I just should be really quiet, but I don't care now because it just needs to stop. And so I hope that people on this committee, that they understand that there's no really agenda. We just want to be treated equal. That's all we're saying, not special, but equal. Because when you look at, and you all need to look at it, you need to look at statistics. Look at the population of African Americans in this city and also in this county, but being arrested. Why? Are we that bad? No. I don't think so. Some of the same things. Look at the judge today, up there in some other city, some other state, dude raped 5 or 6 person. Just because he was white male, he get probation. He get 8 years of probation for raping 14 and 15, 6-year-old girls. Look at this dude up in Wisconsin. Let me carry an assault rifle, in the midst of a crowd. My black butt would have been shot. Come on, you all, wake up. It needs to stop. If you're not angry, if you don't see what's going on, you just blind and ignorant and want to continue to be blind and ignorant. So I hope that people have the right attitude on this task force. If you all don't, then I need to get off of it because I don't have time for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Blaylark. I wanted to also point out that I don't know if you can see it, but sometimes people are putting up emojis, thumbs up, hands clap, hearts to your comments. So we're getting close to the end here. So I just wanted to point that out and also invite people who haven't had a opportunity to speak as we are near the end to raise their hand as well. So
Carol has her hand up and she hasn't spoken.
Oh, I see it. Thanks, Sarah. Marcus, I'll come to you after Carol. Task Force Member Carol Bailey.
Yes. I kind of try to keep my mouth shut because there's a lot of things I don't know. Here's what I do know. Until we have a culture change and accept what Mr. Blaylark and Marcus are saying, we're spinning our wheels and wasting our time. It hurts me. It hurts me to my soul when I look at the news and see the horrible things that are happening to Black men specifically. And I just want to do what I can to help. And I want to know when we're going to start actually doing something with these meetings, because we don't have a whole lot of time left. And I appreciate we need subcommittees, but let's get this show on the road. I'm done for the night. Thank you as far as my comments.
Thank you, Carol. Appreciate those. Marcus.
So for those that don't understand the magnitude of this is life or death for me, either directly or indirectly through friends, family. Like, this is life or death. I've watched this go on for generations. You know, my first memory of a police officer is a police officer sticking the gun in my father's mouth in the hallway of the projects saying, "I'll blow your head off, you nigga." That's my first, as a 3-year-old. That's my first memory. And it's been a fight ever since, right? So it's life or death. Now, I believe we need to get to the work as well. And I would like to propose that we get to some in-person meetings so that we could break up into subcommittees during the meeting and be able to get the work done simultaneously and then come back and share in the last portions of the meeting the things that took place within the subcommittees. That way we're not waiting 2, 3, 4 days a week before we can hear and see what's going on. And I think it'll move things a whole lot faster if we were live and in person. And I would like to ask the chair if that's something that we could put to the table and get to in-person meetings, please.
Chair, I'd like to propose that we hear from Aubrey and then answer that question, because I also have a suggestion too related to it. Thank you, Marcus. Aubrey.
Yeah, at first I agree with Marcus. I think in-person meetings, the conversation will feel more natural and so I agree. I wanted to propose that we start putting some action items in place as far as the subcommittees go so that we can move on and move to some tangible things that we can start getting done. And so I think maybe one way that we can do that is by providing some kind of a forum for committee members to give input if they've not been able to give input or if they feel the need to process a little bit what has been shared. And then give the leadership team a chance to take all that input and then either reframe or rework or add some of the subcommittees. And then perhaps at next meeting, we can start with some assignments with people who are on what committees. We can talk about how many people should be on the committees. But I think we need to figure out a way forward and how we can start getting some of that work done in those subcommittees that I think we all agree on we need to start working on.
Thank you, Aubrey. I can suggest that, and Chair Krigler, I'd like to just make some concluding remarks about that, including next steps and thinking about it. Mm-hmm. The facilitation team can take on that task, specifically what you just suggested, Aubrey, of trying to figure out assignments, but to specific committees so that committees can start working. I guess I'm not really talking about assignments, it's people assigning themselves. And that's one thing. I think also, though, we have to, based off what we've heard today, we've heard ideas. I apologize. There's a pizza delivery guy at my door and my 14-year-old boy is not answering the door for me. We have to compile the ideas that we've heard today. We've taken good notes about those and either figure out how they fit into the suggested subcommittee structure, the proposed subcommittee structure already, or is there an additional subcommittee to propose? We heard one idea of that. And I would like to suggest that the leadership team, we work with the leadership team in the time in between the next meeting on that issue. And so that would be a step first, and then a process for people to volunteer and to assign themselves to a committee or sign up would be something we would work with you all, leadership committee, in the time in between this meeting and the next.
Okay, so I guess the next thing that basically is on the table is what Marcus had proposed, and that was the in-person meetings.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I forgot to comment on that.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
So I don't know if you wanted to speak to it first, and then I'll comment.
Well, I at this point, I believe it's sounding like it's an overwhelming request by all, but we do have to take the vote on that as well. Those who are looking for the in-person meeting, I guess we'll have to put that to the vote.
I want to do an in-person meeting. Yes, I agree with that.
Okay.
As long as it's an elevator, I'm not doing stairs. Just like
I'll carry you, Carol.
No.
Thank you, sweetie.
Okay, it looks like we have an overwhelming, the majority that wants to meet. So at this time, I would have to ask the facilitators, would it be City Hall that we would be meeting at, or how you all would be doing this?
So I think we have to talk with city folks about that, the location and the, how to do it. I think we have a bit of a logistical challenge ourselves as facilitators, but two of us are here in the region, so we can get there. But our other two facilitators would have to be virtual, likely, certainly for the next meeting, given that that's a couple weeks away. What I was going to propose is that sort of the first time that our facilitation team can be in person, all of us, including Sarah and Larry, would be January 6th. And we have been already trying to target that date as a commitment for an in-person meeting. If you all want to meet sooner in person, we will look into how we can do that. What the challenge for us would be a split facilitation team and by location, where some of us could get there and others would be virtual. However, if I would like to throw out there, if anyone on the task force was still interested in participating virtually, then we might be talking about a hybrid meeting where we had some people in person and some people online. It's a little tricky to manage that, but you do see it happening. And so I would like to just ask folks to be open still to the possibility of a hybrid, even if we're meeting in person, especially if because I do think that not everybody voted for having the next meeting in person, but if someone is uncomfortable or due to their own health situation, not able to come to an in-person meeting, that they still have another way to participate.
Okay, yeah, I believe that's fair enough. In reference to the hybrid meeting, would you all want to meet before that January 6th date?
In person, there are meetings between now and January 6th. I wasn't suggesting that was our next meeting.
Right.
Is that what you're asking?
I believe because they're wanting to get to work now.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. We're going to look into the possibility of how to make an in-person meeting happen.
Okay.
As soon as we can. Basically,
Okay.
if it's the next meeting, then it's the next meeting.
So how soon can we get that information out to us so everyone can prepare, for the next meeting, whether they're going to do it in the hybrid fashion, online still, or meeting in person? Because everyone, like I said, we're all wanting to do this.
I know. Yeah. And I'm also worried about the fact that next week is a holiday week. So we're going to try to turn around our communication to the city as quickly as possible. We do meet the facilitation team meets tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday, to reflect on the past meeting and also to gather ourselves to do the things we need to do in between. And this is one of those. So tomorrow, I'm not sure how quickly we could get what we need from City Hall to do that, but we'll try. We'll get our questions asked, and whatever we know, we'll communicate back to the task force. We can send a communication tomorrow if we know that at that point.
Okay. Okay.
Unless, is there anyone else from the facilitation team who wants to comment on that?
I think the message is we'll do it as soon as possible, and then when we hear from the city, we will turn around that information to the remainder of the task force. We do meet with the city on Monday, so if we can't meet with them tomorrow, we'll definitely have an answer by Monday.
Okay. Okay. Then
Chair Cridwell, turn over to you for, if you'd like to.
It's 8:09.
Chair, did we appoint subcommittees, or how are we doing that? I'm sorry, I was not able to get on. Did we appoint committee members, or did people volunteer to be on subcommittees, or what we're doing with that? I don't want to take up people's time, or if you want to call me, you can to let
I
me
was
know.
gonna say, yeah, Walter, I'll call you. I'll call you because we didn't do anything at this point, besides take more proposals in. So they're still having to add some more to those.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah. Okay. So Kevin, did you have your hand up? I'm sorry, Denise.
Yeah, Denise just had
Sorry,
her hand.
Denise.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. I just have to say how extremely frustrated I feel right now, because we've been asking to meet, or at least I have been asking to meet in person since our first meeting. And I truly don't understand why it's taken us so long, and we still haven't gotten to a point when we can commit to having an in-person meeting. So for the sake of transparency and just to get it off my chest, I have to say that I'm very frustrated about this, to have repeated requests that haven't been acknowledged. So do what you need to do, but let us meet together. And I'll be quiet now. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Okay, there you go, Joe.
You heard it loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay. And Kevin, please.
Thank you, Jewel. I just wanted to pick up from that conversation that someone mentioned earlier that I think we should definitely at least maybe vote on the Citizen Utility Board as a subcommittee, and then maybe see if who is interested today working on that. Maybe that could start floating around now. And then I just wanted to announce that I'm going to send the information that I've collected over the summer to the task force, to Joe first. That way he could disperse it to everybody to look at. I know I've reached out to a couple people at this point. Everyone check your Facebook. I've reached out to you there to communicate. And then just wanted to let people know, keep an eye on that. But back to you, LaJewel. Thank you.
Okay. So at this point, is there anything else anyone would like to put on the table? Nothing?
Jewel, I think Aubrey has her hand up.
Aubrey,
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's okay. No, that's okay. I just want to make sure that it's said that if we are going to go to a hybrid model, that we make sure that the facilitation team, my request of you would just be to explore ways to make sure that people who are engaging online, that there's an equitable opportunity for them to be able to participate in the meetings, because I know that can get really hairy when you're trying to do both. So just making sure that's said.
Okay.
Thanks, Aubrey. Yeah, that is a challenge.
Tish?
Yes, just real quickly, a couple of the things.
The other Tish, I'm sorry.
Oh, when there's two Tishes, sometimes they collide, my dear. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to address a couple of the issues that were brought up really quickly. And I thought we may have covered this at the last meeting, but my apologies if it wasn't covered. When Kearns and West initially provided their proposal to the city, because we were in the middle of COVID, it was deemed that a lot of this stuff would move forward, obviously online. Now that things are starting to open up, and obviously, well, part of what was being proposed when we do the community meetings, obviously that was going to be in person. Since there has been some changes, and yes, I agree, we should start, trying to move towards being in person for those who are able to be in person. We're currently working with Kearns and West to make that happen sooner rather than later, just in recognition of, we're approaching the holidays. It's probably not going to happen until probably closer to the beginning of the year. That is the goal. At least that's what I'm being told right now that we're aiming for. So we have heard the concerns and we are working to make that happen, recognizing that, half of the Kearns and West team is right over in the Chicago area. So even if the whole team can't come in person, some of the team can come in person. And obviously the task force can meet with those members of the facilitation team in person, because I think it will make a difference to have us in person. The second thing, I really think two things hopefully can come out of this meeting yet tonight. Folks are voicing concerns about wanting to move forward, wanting to start working on some things. Really need to nail down the subcommittees, get consensus on subcommittees, and be able to move forward with those. Maybe something that can happen offline is people can start to send the facilitation and leadership team what top 2 subcommittees they would like to work on once those are clear, once those are we've gotten consensus from the task force. And then also, if again offline in between now and the next meeting, if the task force likes the idea of breaking the subcommittees in half and working on 3 now and 3 later, if you have some insight on what 3 you want to work on now, I think that is something also that we should ask the task force members to provide insight on. Lastly, I think there needs to be some type of clarification or process for how do task force members get items on the agenda. I think that is something that needs to be addressed. That's something I've kind of heard during the course of the meeting, during the course of some of our other meetings. Should people be sending that to the facilitation and leadership team? I think there needs to be some clarification around that. So look, that's all I have to say. And because I know it's late. Thank you.
Tish, in response to that, what I'd just want to say real quick, I think we would prefer that we generate the list for people to respond to, so everybody has the same, list from which they're setting, expressing their preferences for. Sarah, would you agree with that? Yeah. So I think, I appreciate wanting to move quickly, and people just sending us their preferences, and that could work. But I think if people are not clear, it could get a little complicated.
Are you referring to the subcommittees?
Yes, the subcommittees.
Right, and I understand that. I'm not suggesting that people just randomly start sending you recommendations. Okay. I'm saying I'm not sure. Did we get consensus from everyone on what the subcommittees actually are? Did we get consensus from people?
No, we have not, and I think that's what Joe is gonna talk about as next steps on what we'll be from after this call and between now and then our next task force meeting.
That's what I was trying to get at. I think we need to identify a way to do that in between now and the next meeting. And part of that is just confirming exactly what that list is with the leadership committee, and then identifying how we're going to, whether it's sending it out by email, which that's probably what it's going to have to be, and asking people to respond, indicating their preferences. But want to confirm that list for sure first.
Yeah, I guess
I just hate.
it would have been good. It would have been great had folks, kind of seen it or had some of this information before the meeting, but that's neither here nor there. I just think that we really should have had more time during the meeting for the task force to really come to consensus tonight, because here yet again, we're losing time. And we still haven't nailed down the subcommittees, and now we're waiting for that, and then we're going to have to wait again for people to determine what subcommittees they want to sit on. I mean, it just seems it's taking much longer than I really think that it needs to. But again, it's up to the committee. If people are fine with waiting and getting that list later, but I have a feeling that some of you are ready to move forward based on some of the things that based on the subcommittees that are there. Maybe something needs to be tweaked here or there, making sure that things are added, but I don't see a reason to wait to send something back out to folks.
Well, I had proposed, as you stated, to have people take and give, their top two. And we should be able to, insert those in, the subcommittees that we have here, and then send them out. And I mean, either then they, are going to agree, yeah, this is, what I want to do. And, that'll be the group that you'll be in. That's my thought. But everybody would need to send that out to us, I'd say within the next couple of days. So then, that gives us some time. And in regards to our next meeting, that we would be able to then do that.
Right. But even before then, and I completely agree with you, Kelly, is there consensus on the subcommittees? That's first and foremost.
Yeah.
I mean, because I have a feeling that what the facilitation team is feeling like that there may not be consensus on the subcommittees.
Right. Well, Ken, the facilitators, are you able to get something out within the next, I guess, 24, 48 hours, that, the whole team would be able to, a whole group would be able to actually see what they are. And then I guess we'd have to go through that, once they got the information back to us of what they agree with. And then I guess we just have to go with the first three that has the most votes, to start with. And then that at least gives us something to work on.
Should we maybe transition to next steps, and we can so I think that is like one thing we can do, is
Sure.
We are meeting tomorrow morning to review our notes, and just make sure that we are capturing everything that was said today. And then our goal is to send that to the team, the whole team task force, a consolidated list of all that was suggested. And we did hear that we want time to provide additional feedback or edits. So where the process will be when we send that list, if you have any additional comments or edits or concerns, please send that to us. And then hopefully by the time on Tuesday we meet as a leadership team, we would have everyone's comments and edits, and then we can kind of review that as a whole list.
Okay.
And Joe, is there anything else you wanted to mention as next steps or action items?
No, I don't have anything else.
Okay, then back to you, LaJewel, to
close. Okay, I'm trying to close. Tish, I know you had your hand up. Tish Callahan.
Thank you. Councilwoman Tish Powell and I refer to each other as the other fabulous Tish. So I thank the other fabulous Tish for her comments in getting us hopefully on the straight and narrow here. I just wanted to say that we will probably meet the 2nd, the 16th, and the 30th of December. Those will be our next dates, with maybe the 30th being problematic if people are away for the holidays. I hope that somebody puts together a schedule of some sort to take into consideration everybody's holiday plans.
Sorry,
I
to interrupt,
also,
Tish, we're not meeting on the 30th. We're
Okay.
gonna be like that is gonna be the 6th after that.
okay, great. Okay. That's great. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is I concur with LaJewel that we should just put up the list of the subcommittees such as they are. When we choose our 2 or 3, I think there will be some clear winners, and we go with those. And it might not be perfect. It might be a little messy. Some of the sub points we can hash out later, but let's just pick the big categories of subcommittees and, get on with it. And if we overlap a little bit, that's okay. Again, multiple perspectives towards a certain goal, I think will benefit us.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank
Tish. Kevin?
All right, thank you.
Walter Blaylock, do you have any other comments?
Yes, I just hope that, and maybe I need to talk to the chief about this, because I don't know if, Ismail and the group we talked to, the facilitator, talked about this on last night about the schools and the police in the school. And maybe I need to talk to Chief Lally about this, and get some statistics about how many of those kids are arrested, because I'm hearing today that many of our kids are tracked and are in jail because of some things that happen in school, and that's a large number. I get from the African American Men in Unity, gave me a lot of statistics today, and it's really alarming. So maybe I need to really, and I don't know. We had a subcommittee of that, and I don't know if you all seen that, but maybe if you guys have not, maybe to make that a priority, I would have to, because it's a lot of things that is going on with that throughout this country, of kids of brown and black color being detained and being put in jail for something that they did in school. And so we need to look at that. If you guys can't, I surely would be talking to the chief about it, if you guys don't mind, because it's something that's dear to me. Because if a kid is seeing police at that age, as Marcus talked about his father, that's damaging. So that's something I need to know. Maybe Chief and I can sit down and talk, and she can give me those statistics. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Walter. We also would like to see that information too. I'm sure some of us would love to have that information. So with that being said, we are past time. And it is time to close the meeting. So I'm asking for a motion to move forward in closing.
So move.
All righty. So with that being said, thank you all for coming out again and participating. We appreciate it. And we will see you the next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I totally agree with Tish. It's time for us to get this thing moving. So, the other great Tish, whoever.
Yeah, get that together and
How to leave this joint. Okay, right here. Okay.
Bye, Walter.
Bye. You guys make sure next time you guys get me on here.
Yes, we can always, if you want to come a little bit earlier, we can help you to make sure you're on.
Yeah, no, the link. I hit the link, it would just circulate,
Yeah.
and saying something was wrong with, test the computer or something.
That's strange.
I don't know what's going
But
on.
if you want to just maybe come at 5:50, we can always make sure that you help you with any technology issues.
Okay, great. I sure will. I give it a test run.
Great.
Okay, thanks, Sarah.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right. can end this then. Cameron,
Sarah, do you want to just end this, and then if we need to debrief, rejoin?
sure, I can send us a link, another link. Like,
Okay.
yeah, that's not Diddy's.
Okay, I'll let Norma know.
All right.